A couple had just shared an intimate and passionate moment. The atmosphere was filled with the warmth of their closeness, and they lay intertwined in each other's embrace. As the stillness of the night surrounded them, she gently caressed his manhood, lost in thought. Seeing her thoughtful expression and feeling her touch, he turned to her with a curious glint in his eyes and asked, "Are you thinking about going for another round?" She paused for a moment, then softly responded, "Not really. You see, I really miss mine." Three longtime friends found themselves sharing a table, sipping on their favorite drinks, and indulging in their favorite pastime, discussing their relationships. The first woman, a vibrant lady with flowing curls, leaned in with a mischievous smile, saying, "You know, girls, I often refer to my husband as a dentist." She winked. The reason being, he's got this amazing ability to drill, and he does it like no one else. The group chuckled, and the second woman, with bright sparkling eyes, playfully rolled her eyes and said, "That's quite something. My husband, on the other hand, reminds me of a miner. He's not the most impressive shaft I've ever seen." Amidst the giggles and laughter, the third woman remained quiet, taking occasional sips from her whiskey glass. The others turned their attention to her, their curiosity piqued. "All right, we'd shared. Now it's your turn. Do you have a fun name for your husband?" the first woman asked. The third woman, after a thoughtful pause, replied with a straight face, "I've always thought of him as the postman." Both friends looked at each other in confusion. The postman. That's unique. Why would that be? The second woman inquired. The third woman sighed and said, "Because he always delivers late, and half the time it's in the wrong slot." A wise old farmer wanted to teach his young 18-year-old son about entrepreneurship and resourcefulness. To test the boy's skills, he handed him a duck and challenged him, "Take this to the town, my son. By the time you return, make sure you are in a better position than when you started." Taking up the challenge with enthusiasm, the son began his journey towards the bustling town. As he walked, pondering how he might profit from the duck, he chanced upon a lady who, by profession, provided company to lonely souls. Intrigued by the lad and his duck, she approached him. With a hint of mischief, the son proposed, "Why don't we strike a deal? 15 minutes of your time in exchange for this fine duck." It wasn't every day that such a peculiar barter proposition came her way, but seeing the uniqueness of the situation, she accepted. Upon spending time together, the lady found herself highly impressed with the young man's vigor and charm. So much so that she made another proposition. "If you're up for another round, I'll give you back the duck," she suggested with a wink. Elated by this turn of events, the boy found himself in the same position as before, still having the duck and also having had a memorable experience. However, the day's adventures weren't over. As he walked back towards his village, a sudden noise from a nearby construction site startled the duck. The panicked bird flew straight into the road, right into the path of a speeding truck. Tragically, the duck met its end. The truck driver, a kind-hearted man, jumped out and approached the boy. Seeing the dead duck and the crestfallen face of the young lad, he felt responsible. Wanting to make amends, he handed the boy a note. "Here," he said, handing over 10 pounds. "I'm truly sorry for your loss." By evening, the young lad returned home. The father, eager to hear about his son's day, asked, "Well, how did your day unfold?" The son replied, "Pretty good. I got fucked for a duck for a fuck, and 10 pounds for a fucked up duck." There was a popular bar, famous not just for its drinks but also for its unique menu board that hung above the counter. Every passerby would glance at it, and its peculiar list always managed to grab attention. One day a man, tired from his day's work and looking to grab a quick bite, entered the bar. As he scanned the surroundings, his eyes landed on the menu board. It read, "Hamburger, $1, cheeseburger, $2, hand job, $3. Finding the board intriguing, he glanced around and spotted an attractive blonde woman managing the counter. She noticed him staring and asked warmly, "Hello there. Looking for something special?" The man, leaning closer to maintain some semblance of privacy, softly inquired, "I couldn't help but notice the board. Are you, by any chance, the one offering hand jobs?" With a confident nod and a slightly mischievous smile, she replied, "Indeed, I am." The man paused, looked her in the eye, and said, "Well then, wash your hands. I want a cheeseburger."
An 11-year-old Jewish boy was failing math. His parents tried everything from tutors to hypnosis, but to no avail. Finally, at the insistence of a family friend, they decided to enroll their son in a private Catholic school. After the first day, the boy's parents were surprised when he walked in after school with a stern, focused, and very determined expression on his face. He went straight past them, right to his room, and quietly closed the door. For nearly 2 hours, he toiled away in his room, with math books strewn about his desk and the surrounding floor. He emerged long enough to eat, and after quickly cleaning his plate, went straight back to his room, closed the door, and worked feverishly at his studies until bedtime. This pattern of behavior continued until it was time for the first quarter's report card. The boy walked in with it unopened, laid it on the dinner table, and went straight to his room. Cautiously, his mother opened it, and to her amazement, she saw a grade of 100% under the subject of math. Overjoyed, she and her husband rushed into their son's room, thrilled at his remarkable progress. "Was it the nuns that did it?" the father asked. The boy shook his head and said, "No." "Was it the one-to-one tutoring? The peer mentoring?" asked the father. "No," replied the boy. "The textbooks? The teachers? The curriculum?" "No," said the boy. "Then what was it?" his father asked. The boy replied, "Well, on that first day, when I walked in the front door and saw that guy nailed to the plus sign, I knew they meant business." In a small town, there are two evil brothers. Over the course of many years, they cheated, swindled, robbed, and generally stole from everyone they ever did business with. The entire town and surrounding community despise these two brothers, as everyone is aware of how dishonest they are. One day, one of the brothers mysteriously dies. Although neither of the brothers have ever attended church, the remaining brother offers the local pastor a large sum of money to say some good words at the funeral. He also offers the pastor a huge bonus if during the eulogy he refers to his brother as a saint. The pastor is troubled by the request. However, the church is very poor and desperately needed repairs. The parishioners heard about the pastor's dilemma and are curious as to what he will decide. As the funeral begins, the church is packed with the townspeople. The pastor begins with the usual prayers and traditions required by the church's teachings. In closing, he pauses and turns to face the remaining brother. He begins, "As you all know, the departed was an awful individual. He robbed, cheated, swindled, and stole from everyone he did business with. However, compared to his brother, he was a saint." On the first day, God created the dog and said, "Sit all day by the door of your house and bark at anyone who comes in or walks past. For this, I will give you a lifespan of 20 years. The dog said, "That's a long time to be barking. How about only 10 years, and I'll give you back the other 10. So God agreed. On the second day, God created the monkey and said, "Entertain people, do tricks, and make them laugh. For this, I'll give you a 20-year lifespan." The monkey said, "Monkey tricks for 20 years? That's a pretty long time to perform. How about I give you back 10 like the dog did?" And God agreed. On the third day, God created the cow and said, "Go into the field with the farmer all day and suffer under the sun. Have calves and give milk to support the farmer's family. For this, I will give you a lifespan of 60 years. The cow said, "That's kind of a tough life you want me to live for 60 years. How about 20, and I'll give back the other 40. And God agreed. On the fourth day, God created man and said, "Eat, sleep, play, marry, and enjoy your life. For this, I'll give you 20 years. But the man said, "Only 20 years? Could you possibly give me my 20? The 40 the cow gave back, the 10 the monkey gave back, and the 10 the dog gave back. That makes 80 years, okay?" "Okay," said God, "but remember, you asked for it. So that is why, For our first 20 years, we eat, sleep, play, and enjoy ourselves. For the next 40 years, we slave to support our family. For the next 10 years, we do monkey tricks to entertain the grandchildren. And for the last 10 years, we sit on the front porch and bark at everyone. Betty's washing machine broke down, so she called a repairman. She told him, "I'll leave the key under the mat. Fix the dishwasher, leave the bill on the counter, and I'll send you a check. Oh, by the way, don't worry about my bulldog Spike. He won't bother you. But whatever you do, do not, under any circumstances, talk to my parrot. I mean it. Don't talk to my parrot." When the repairman arrives at Betty's house the following day, he discovers the biggest, meanest-looking bulldog he has ever seen. But just as Betty had said, the dog just lies there on the carpet, watching him go about his work. The parrot, however, drives him nuts the whole time with his incessant yelling, cursing, and name-calling. Finally, the repairman can't contain himself any longer and yells, "Shut up, you stupid, ugly bird," to which the parrot replies, "Get him, Spike." A church puts an ad in the newspaper for a person to ring the bell in the belfry on Sunday mornings. No one applies for the position except for a young man with no arms. The church administrator isn't sure he can handle the job, but the man climbs the tower and rings the bell using just his head. On his first Sunday on the job, the man gets a little too excited and hits the bell a little too hard with his melon. He falls from the belfry and lands on the church steps. Two parishioners late for services rush past him. "Who was that guy?" the wife asks her husband as they enter the church. "I'm not sure," the husband replies, "but his face does ring a bell." Two unemployed guys are talking. One says, "I'm going to become a lion tamer." The other replies, "That's crazy. You don't know nothing about no lion taming." "Yes, I do." "Well, okay, answer me this. When one of those lions comes at you, all roaring and biting, what you gonna do?" "I'll take that big chair they all carry, and I'll stick it in his face until he backs down." "Well, what if the lion takes that big paw and hooks the chair with those big claws and throws that chair out of the cage? What do you do then?" "I'll take that whip they all carry, and I'll whip him until he backs down." "Well, what if that lion bites that whip with his big teeth and bites it in two? What you gonna do then?" "I'll take that gun they all carry and shoot him." "Well, what if that gun don't work? What will you do then?" "I'll pick up whatever's on the bottom of the cage and I throw it in his eyes and I run out of the cage." "Well, what if there ain't nothing on the bottom of the cage? What you gonna do then?" "You ain't thinking none too clear, 'cause if that lion comes at me and he throws the chair out of the cage and he bites the whip in two and my gun don't work, there's going to be something at the bottom of that cage."
After a comforting family dinner, my young son approached with a concerned look. "Dad," he began hesitantly, "there's something not right with one of the lizards in my room. He's not moving much and looks a bit off. Can you come and check?" Curious and wanting to be the superhero dad, I nodded and accompanied him to his room, ready to diagnose the issue. Lying there in the cage, one of the lizards seemed quite distressed, sprawled out on its back. Knowing this was a matter of great concern, I loudly beckoned my wife. "Honey, could you come here for a minute? Take a look." She rushed over, and her eyes widened in surprise. "Oh dear, I think she's about to have babies." My son's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Babies?" But I named them Bert and Ernie because I thought they were both boys. I was on the same page with him. Exactly. I recall us specifically deciding against having them reproduce. "What happened?" I asked my wife, a hint of blame in my voice. She shot back equally defensive. "Am I supposed to put a sign in their cage asking them not to have babies?" "I thought we agreed on getting 2 male lizards?" I questioned. "Bert and Ernie, right?" added my son, supporting my point. She sighed in exasperation. Sometimes it's just not that clear with lizards. By now the mystery of the lizard's behavior had attracted the attention of the entire family. Eager to turn the situation into a learning experience, I said, "Gather around, everyone. We might witness the beauty of birth." The collective reaction was, "Ew." Our eyes were glued to the cage. Occasionally, a tiny foot-like structure would emerge and then disappear in a fleeting moment. "It's not progressing well," I mused aloud. My wife whispered with concern, "I think it's breech." Panicking a bit, my son begged, "Do something, Dad." Taking a deep breath, I carefully reached into the cage, attempting to gently tug the tiny foot. But it kept retracting. The attempt was futile. My eldest daughter chimed in, "Should we call emergency services? Perhaps they have experience with lizard births," she added, half-jokingly. Determined to get professional help, I decided, we need to see a vet. So, with my son clutching the cage close to him, we sped to the nearest veterinary clinic. The entire ride, my son kept muttering, "Hold on, Ernie." Once there, the vet took Ernie to be examined. He looked closely, using a magnifying glass to study Ernie. Considering a possible solution, I asked, "Doc, would a C-section work?" He looked intrigued. "Mr. and Mrs. Cameron," he began, "can we talk privately?" Feeling anxious, I gestured for my son to wait outside. "Is everything going to be all right?" my wife asked, wringing her hands. The vet tried to stifle a smile. "Absolutely. See, Ernie isn't giving birth. Actually, he can't. Because Ernie is a young male lizard." My wife and I exchanged puzzled looks. The vet continued, "As male lizards grow, they sometimes, well, let's just say they become self-aware." Realization dawned, and we sat there stunned. "So, Ernie was just excited?" my wife asked. "Precisely," the vet responded, a hint of amusement in his eyes. The news was unexpected, to say the least. And when it finally sunk in, my wife burst into uncontrollable laughter, picturing the whole scenario in her head. Trying to regain some dignity, I cautioned. "All right, that's enough laughter." We thanked the vet and made our way home, with the relieved and oblivious Ernie in tow. Upon reaching home, my son, gratitude shining in his eyes, said, "Thanks, Dad. Ernie must be really grateful." His mother, still chuckling, added, "If only you knew just how grateful." Cost of 2 lizards, $140. A comfortable cage, $50. Unexpected visit to the vet, $30. Memory of your husband pulling on a lizard's winky, priceless. And a lesson learned. Always remember your biology lessons. Lizards lay eggs.
A farmer is sitting in the neighborhood bar getting drunk. A man comes in and asks the farmer, "Hey, why are you sitting here on this beautiful day getting drunk?" The farmer shakes his head and replies, "Some things you just can't explain." "So, what happened that's so horrible?" the man asks as he sits down next to the farmer. "Well," the farmer says, "today I was sitting by my cow, milking her. Just as I got the bucket full, she lifted her left leg and kicked over the bucket." "Okay," says the man, "but that's not so bad. Some things you just can't explain," the farmer replies. "So what happened then?" the man asks. The farmer says, "I took her left leg and tied it to the post on the left." "And then?" asks the man. "Well," says the farmer, "I sat back down and continued to milk her. Just as I got the bucket full, she took her right leg and kicked over the bucket." The man laughs and asks, "Again?" The farmer replies, "Some things you just can't explain." "So, what did you do then?" the man asks. "I took her right leg this time and tied it to the post on the right." "And then?" asks the man. "Well," continues the farmer, "I sat back down and began milking her again. Just as I got the bucket full, the stupid cow knocked over the bucket with her tail." The man says while nodding his head. "Some things you just can't explain," the farmer says. "So what did you do?" the man asks. "Well," the farmer says, "I didn't have any more rope, so I took off my belt and tied her tail to the rafter. In that moment, my pants fell down, and my wife walked in. Some things you just can't explain." A man is dining alone at a fancy restaurant, while a beautiful brunette is sitting at the next table. He's been secretly checking her out ever since he arrived, but doesn't have the courage to start talking to her. Suddenly she sneezes, and her glass eye flies out of its socket toward the man. His reflexes kick in, and he reaches out, plucks it out of the air, and hands it back to her. The woman is mortified. "Oh my, I am so sorry," she says as she pops her eye back into place. "Let me buy your dinner to make it up to you." So he joins her at her table, and they enjoy a wonderful meal together. Afterwards, they go to the theater, followed by drinks at a bar. They talk, they laugh, she shares her deepest dreams, and he shares his. After paying for everything, she asks him if he would like to come to her place for a nightcap. He says yes, and they return to her place. He ends up staying the night, and the next morning, she cooks a gourmet meal with all the trimmings. The guy is amazed at how everything has been so perfect and how incredible this woman is. He can't believe his luck. "You know," he says, "you are the perfect woman. Are you this nice to every guy you meet?" "No," she replies. "Actually, you just happened to catch my eye." One evening, a family takes their frail, elderly mother to a nursing home, hoping she will be well cared for. The next morning, the nurses bathe her, feed her a tasty breakfast, then set her in a chair near a window overlooking a lovely flower garden. She seems okay, but after a while, she slowly starts to lean over sideways in her chair. Two attentive nurses immediately rush up to catch her and straighten her up. Again, she seems okay, but after a while, she starts to tilt to the other side. The nurses rush back and once more bring her back upright. This goes on all morning. Later, the family arrives to see how the old woman is adjusting to her new home. "So, Ma, how is it here? Are they treating you all right?" they ask. "It's pretty nice," she replies. "Except they won't let you fart." The teacher asks the class to share an exciting event that happened to them during the past week. "Billy, you go first," says the teacher. "What exciting thing happened to you this past week?" "My parents took me and my little brother to an amusement park last Saturday," pipes Billy. "That sounds very exciting," exclaims the teacher. Next, Cindy raises her hand. "Cindy, what about you?" asks the teacher. "I went to my cousin's wedding," says Cindy. "How wonderful," replies the teacher. At this point, little Johnny is waving his hand in the back of the class. The teacher tries to ignore him by looking around the room and asking, "Does anyone else want to share?" Little Johnny is still the only child with their hand up. The teacher sighs. "Okay, Johnny, what exciting thing happened to you?" Little Johnny boasts excitedly, "My daddy fell into a well." The teacher, alarmed, exclaims, "Good Lord, is he okay?" Little Johnny just shrugs. He stopped calling for help yesterday." An 80-year-old man was asked for a sperm count by his doctor as part of his physical exam. The doctor gave the man a jar and said, "Take this jar home and bring back a sample tomorrow." The next day, the 80-year-old man reappeared at the doctor's office and gave him the jar, which was as clean and empty as on the previous day. The doctor asked him, "What happened?" The man explained, "Well, Doc, it's like this. First, I tried with my right hand, but nothing. Then I tried with my left hand, but still nothing. Then I asked my wife for help. She tried with her right hand and then with her left, and still nothing. She tried with her mouth, first with the teeth in and then with her teeth out, still nothing. We even called up Arlene, the lady next door, and she tried too. First with both hands, then an armpit, and she even tried squeezing it between her knees, but still nothing." The doctor was shocked. "You asked your neighbor?" The old man replied, "Yep. None of us could get the jar open." A saddened cowboy walks into a bar. The bartender asks, "Why the long face?" The cowboy replies, "I just found out my wife is sleeping with another man. I've decided I'm going to drink myself to death." The bartender looks shocked and says, "I'm sorry, but I can't help you kill yourself. The cowboy asks, "Well, what would you do in my situation?" The bartender puffs himself up a bit and says, "If I found out a guy was sleeping with my wife, I wouldn't sit around feeling sorry for myself. I'd kill the guy." The cowboy jumps up from his stool and shouts, "That's a great idea," and runs out of the bar. A couple of hours goes by, and the bartender is starting to get nervous when the cowboy walks back into the bar with a big smile on his face. "Did you kill the guy?" the bartender asks nervously. "Nope. I slept with your wife." Redneck Ray strolls into an ice cream parlor and looks up at the menu over the counter. He tells the clerk, "I'd like a gallon of your chocolate ice cream, please." The clerk replies, "Sorry, sir, we're all out of chocolate. I'd be happy to get you another flavor, though." Ray says, "Oh, all right. I'll just have a pint of chocolate then." The clerk, frustration starting to show, says, "Sir, as I just explained to you, we are all out of chocolate." He then points to a sign that reads, "Sorry, we are out of chocolate today." Ray thinks for a moment, then says, "Oh, I get it. I'll just have a scoop of chocolate then." The clerk, trying to hold back his rage, says, "Sir, as I've already told you, we are completely out of chocolate." At this point, the clerk is beginning to wonder if the customer even knows how to read. So he asks him, "Sir, where is the V in vanilla?" Ray, taken aback by the question, answers, "At the beginning." The clerk says, "Very good. Now where is the Y in strawberry?" Ray replies, At the end?" The clerk says, "Right again. Maybe I underestimated you. Now where is the F in chocolate?" Ray ponders this question for a while with a look of concentration on his face, then finally says, "There ain't no F in chocolate." "Exactly," replies the clerk.
3 women die together in an accident and go to heaven. When they get there, St. Peter says, "We only have one rule here in heaven. Don't step on the ducks." So they enter heaven, and there are ducks all over the place. One day, the first woman accidentally steps on a duck. Along comes St. Peter with the ugliest man she ever saw. He chains them together and says, "Your punishment for stepping on a duck is to spend eternity chained to this ugly man." The next day, the second woman steps on a duck, and along comes St. Peter, who does the same thing. The third woman manages to go months without stepping on any ducks. But one day, St. Peter comes up to her with the most handsome man she has ever laid eyes on. St. Peter chains them together. The happy woman says, "I wonder what I did to deserve being chained to you for all of eternity." The guy says, "I don't know about you, but I stepped on a duck." A woman went to a pet shop and immediately spotted a parrot. There was a sign on the cage that said $50, which seemed cheap. "Why so little?" she asked the pet store owner. He said, "I should tell you that this bird used to live in a house of prostitution, and sometimes it says some vulgar stuff." The woman decided she had to have the bird anyway. She took it home and hung the bird's cage up. The bird looked around the room, then at her, and said, "New house, new madam." The woman found it kind of amusing. When her 2 teenage daughters returned from school, the bird saw them and said, "New house, new madam, new girls." The girls and the woman began to laugh about the situation, considering how and where the parrot had been raised. Moments later, the woman's husband came home from work. The bird looked at him and said, "Hi, Bob." The teacher asked the class to use the word fascinate in a sentence. Molly put up her hand and said, "My family went to my granddad's farm and we all saw his pet sheep. It was fascinating." The teacher said, "That was good, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate, not fascinating." Sally raised her hand. She said, "My family went to see the Grand Canyon and I was fascinated." The teacher said, "Well, that was good, Sally, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate." Little Johnny raised his hand. The teacher hesitated because she had been burned by Little Johnny before. She decided there was no way he could damage the word fascinate, so she called on him. Johnny said, "My Aunt Gina has a sweater with 10 buttons, but her tits are so big that she can only fascinate." The teacher fainted. A Karen goes to a doctor because she has not been feeling well. She says, "Doctor, I've not been feeling well lately." The doctor responds, "I've looked at your lab reports and I'm afraid I have some bad news." The Karen, being Karen, started yelling, "Don't give me this lab nonsense. I believe in homeopathic medicine, faith-based approaches, and healing crystals. All my life, they have never failed me. Now will you do things my way, or do I need to talk to the hospital manager?" The doctor said, "Sure, we'll do things your way. Will an astrology-based approach work for you?" Karen replied. "At last a sensible approach!" The doctor asked, "What is your birth sign?" Karen said, "It's Cancer!" The doctor hilariously replied, "Wow, what a coincidence."